At the time, it was the gun. The gun went off. Right? I knew.
Can you tell me your name
My name is Duke Ray Thurman.
and where you're from?
Originally, I'm from San Fernando Valley, LA County, but I was born in Fresno, Fresno County.
And can you tell me about your family and your upbringing?
Well, I mean, as a child, I had pretty much a great life, because of my dad, who is. I never really like to tell anybody this, but now that I'm older, it's different. I'm pretty open about it because my dad that raised me is not my biological father. When I was like 6, I think it was, or 5, my mom had told me, hey, we're going to be going to court, and the reason why was because my dad was giving me his last name. He wanted to adopt me. He wanted, and I'm like, well, that's Dad, you know what I mean? She's like, well, you just have to tell the judge, and I said, okay, but I never did like hearing that I had another dad, especially one that I never met or whatever, and seemed like nobody liked, as far as my mom and everybody. But other than that, I mean, growing up, I was spoiled. I was the first grandson, not the first grandchild, but I was the first grandson. And it was all about Duke. And as far as my aunts, my mom, my nana, and that's just how it was. My dad loved me too. I was born. Let me just kind of step back. I was born with the first name of Donald Ray Riggs. I guess I was junior. And Donald Ray Riggs, my biological father, I didn't know because I didn't meet him until 2002. And as a baby, I guess I met him, but I don't remember, But he went to the Army, he was in the Vietnam War. And nobody heard nothing from him until I met him in 2002. But that's I'll get to that. I had my mom's mom and dad. They were both alive, and Paul was my mom's dad. Grandpa called him Paul. And my grandma was Nana, and everybody just called me, Duke Doo. And like I said, I got everything I wanted pretty much, and was, I was a little brat at sometimes, I guess, but I was a good kid. I didn't, in school, from the very beginning, I was like A-B student. If I got a C, I started tripping. It was hard on me. I was hard on myself.
Yeah.
And my parents were always like, look, you get good grades, then you can always get what you want. You just gotta get good grades. And so I did. And my dad, he was into dirt bikes and dune buggies, and so I had a little, for Christmas, when I was, 4, I got a little Indian Talajet 50 dirt bike with training wheels. It was an automatic, it just had one gear. And
nice stuff, shit.
yeah. I got it for Christmas. Now Christmas morning, I remember in Fresno driving on the sidewalk, and then the throttle stuck, and down at the end, the street turned left, and then it turned to another side street that went out to the main street. But right there at the turn, there was a blue house. I kissed the side of that house at 4 years old on this little dirt bike, and I don't remember. I kind of vaguely remember, but I was crying. I know that, and my dad was like, "Get up, get on that bike. You're gonna, ride it back." And I did, but I cried all the way, And then it just was. From there, when I was 8, I got a jet ski. For Christmas that was in the living room next to the Christmas tree. It was custom painted with my favorite colors at the time, with my name on it too. So as you can see, I was, that's pretty spoiled.
No,
You know,
definitely.
it's not like my dad was like buku rich, but we were well off. He took, and so that's just how that was. And now I remember when I was 7, Pa died, and I took that hard. I guess I didn't talk for a whole year. I don't remember being 7. I remember being 6, but I don't and remember being 8. I don't remember being 7, and that's weird. Also, at that time, I guess my mom and I were on a plane from LA going to Fresno for Valentine's Day. I started hyperventilating on the plane, and so when the plane landed, they rushed me to the children's hospital. They had me breathe in a paper bag, and then by that night, I guess I had 108 temperature, and they told my mom that, well, he's legally brain dead, at that temperature, and we don't think he's going to make it through the night. Lo and behold, I woke up the next morning to my dad controlling a little remote control car in and out of the doorway to trip the nurses. And but from what my mom says, and I remember, back then, but they sent me to a bunch of specialists because the doctors didn't have a name for what I had. They said that I had a spot on my lung, and it was like bronchial asthma type of virus, and that I should grow out of it by the time I'm, by the time I'm 18 at the latest. But they said like 15, 16, and I never grew out of it. I still to this day have, a cough. It's not a smoker's cough. It just depends on, I guess, the environment or the weather. I'll cough up big lung cookies, you know what I mean? And
I'm sorry. Did they ever identify what it was?
No, they still have never given, but see, I haven't been to the doctor really that much about it through the years until just recently, because I put this all together. My biological father, he when I met him, he explained to me that he had been exposed to Agent Orange, and that was the chemical warfare that the U.S. government used that, and he was exposed to it, and he had big lumps on his back. And I believe that's what he died from. He died pretty early, I think, and it was in 2013 that he died. I know where he's buried, but I have to look into that and find some information out because I already called an attorney. I kind of wanted to, I just feel I know that that's what that is. It makes sense now, So, but anyhow. From there, what else
So I know you said not to jump too far ahead. You were giving us about your upbringing. I know you said at what age did your father, or I should maybe ask you this, did you start getting into any trouble as a kid prior up to your incarceration at what you said?
Oh, yes. Now, see, there was a time where I had certain friends. I had different groups of friends, and I was always my friends were always older. The kids that were in my classes, in school, I think I stopped hanging out with kids in my class right around, I think the last year was 7th grade. And then from then on, 8th, 9th, 10th, and it was always older kids. It was either 5 years older or just the kids that were like a year or two older, than me. And I became pretty close with them. The ones that I went to school with, though, they were good guys. They didn't do drugs. They didn't even smoke weed. Now, when I switched schools in the first half of 11th grade. I switched to a different school, and I had to use my dad's friend, or actually he was an employee, his address, just because that's in order for me to go to that school. But I wanted to change because I liked the environment, the kids that were there, mainly the girls, is why I changed. They had better looking girls, so I switched schools. And it was in a richer community as far as who went to school there. A lot of actors' kids and stuff like Telly Savalas' son went to my school.
So money at the school, essentially. Yeah.
And then there's another, one of the CSI or NCIS shows, there's a female on one of the shows that she didn't go to my school, but she went to the school which was just down the street, which was in the area.
But the area was obviously, like you said, pretty rich.
Well, yeah, Michael Jackson's house was right down the street too.
Okay.
His parents' house, And so, I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, it's the fact that's the one he died at too. But I started smoking marijuana, and drinking, and didn't have a problem when I was smoking marijuana. Never had a problem. And as far as no jail, never got in trouble, I was always healthy then, and I did work out because I took weight training in 10th grade, and then from then on, instead of playing football, because I was more concerned about going to the river during the summer instead of going to Hell Week, and stuff. But now I look back on it and I wish I would have played, There's lots of things I wished I would have done different. Some people say, hey, you don't want to regret anything because you should be happy for, what you've become or whatever. And I am, but there's just lots of things that I know that I think I would have made a different choice, Let's see, in 8th grade, I started smoking weed. My dad smoked weed, and I would go into his stash and steal it, and then smoke with my buddies or whatever. And I found out years later that he knew all that, and he just didn't say nothing. But then I tried cocaine, lines, and it was just a couple times here and there with the friends at the time, because I had two buddies I was real close with. The one was like, you'd say he didn't mess with no drugs at all ever. Okay. If he did anything, he just drank beer. And I don't even remember him doing too much of that when he was older, because he ended up working for my dad as well. But then his neighbor, which was his best friend at one time, right across the street, was a guy named Ray. And we were real close, but I was infatuated with one of his sisters, and they were the ones that brought the cocaine around and got me. That's why I was, I liked it, obviously, and had a good time. It's just that it didn't really affect my school at all then. It wasn't until later on when I was about 17, because I didn't continue to use it. It was just a few times, And then later on, when I was 17, in 11th grade, my second half of 11th grade, I had started basically crack. It's cocaine, but it's rocked up.
Uh-huh.
Someone showed me how to do it, and then that's when I had a real bad issue, because it got so bad where I was locking myself in my room. My parents were always out of town. We had a house at Colorado River in basically Laughlin in Bullhead City, okay, right there by Lake Havasu and Lake Mojave. And that's when, I would lock myself in my room in the house, and I was so paranoid because that's all I was doing was, trying to catch that next hit or whatever, that I saw red lights or red and blue lights coming through the wooden shutters up there. Now that's above I had a full head unit that covered the whole wall in the glass, but up at the top you could still come through. And I was so paranoid I saw that, and then I thought I heard him outside the door, outside my bedroom door, inside the house. And I finally get the courage to open up my bedroom door, and the house is just I mean, you could hear a pin drop. You know, it's so quiet. Look outside and nobody. And that's when it's bad. You know, but. My parents, it wasn't like they didn't know or wasn't suspecting something, because then that went on for about a year, from 17 to 18. And then, that's when my dad was like, hey, what's going on? So my dad just decided, you know what? I'm taking you with me to the river. We're doing a job. We're going to be working on the house. You're going to help me. And he had a couple of his painter buddy and other guys. It was like just a weekend thing for them at that time, but the other guys stayed there for the rest of the week to work on the house. But what it was my dad getting me out of my room for my mom, so my mom can go in my room and investigate and see what was going on. And that's when she pulled the cover back and she saw all kinds of lighters and the tin foil and the glass, crack pipe and stuff, and she freaked out. She didn't know what to do, so she called our friend, but he was my attorney, my dad's attorney, for anything that we needed him for. But he was a good friend too, and he helped her and told her what was going on, what I was doing, and then she was setting it up for me to go to rehab, and it was a reputable rehab.
Inpatient?
Yeah, but it was like at that time, because that was a long time ago. They were saying it was gonna cost like $30,000 or something like that. And, well, anyways, my dad had a talk with me after he talked to my mom, the next day or before we went home, and he's like, look, he told me what mom wanted and this and that. And so what I did was we went home the next day, or that Monday or whatever it was. I don't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. But I went with my mom. She took me for an interview at the rehab, and I spoke to the guy and everything. And then, but I got home and I told Dad, and I said, look, I don't know, what to, because this is going to cost a lot of money. I'll go, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about. Am I gonna be angry? Am I gonna, or what? Or what if I still, Anyhow, my dad is like, look, and I didn't ever say no to my dad, and my dad was the only man I was ever afraid of, and but not because he put hands on me. He never did that. The worst he's ever done to me was just grab me and shake me. He wasn't like violent like that. He was very a verbally abusive man, as far as he would, in front of anybody, and that's the one thing I had an issue with him. But he tells me, he goes, look, I believe any man, as long as he takes care of his responsibilities, he has the right to do whatever he wants. And any man, if they have a problem, that man can. He doesn't, rehab, he didn't believe in rehabs. He's like, look, if you want to stop, you'll stop. If you don't, you don't. It's pretty much up to you. That's the way I see it. So he told me that, and I said, all right, I'll stop, and I never did it again. But the deal was I wasn't going to rehab. He was like, come on, you're going to work with me. So that's what I did. That next few days, I was working right next to my dad. And Mom was like, what's going on? I was like, she had my bags packed, everything, and he's like, no, he's going to work. And she's like, what? And she's all worried, but yeah, I never used it again. I went back, I still smoked weed, still drank. Everything was just normal. That was normal, never had a problem with any of that. But my school was hindered a lot. I was ditching. I'd go to school, or I'd go to the homeroom, the second period or whatever, so I could get attendance for the whole day. But then when the other classes, once the teachers seen that I was missing so much, then they started writing letters home or whatever, or calling, and my parents thought they'd be smart and changed the phone number to the office because we had a roofing business that my dad had built, and I had a key to the office. So once they did that, I just drove myself to the office every night to erase that one message. So I was beating the system. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's. I didn't end up graduating. I was supposed to graduate in 1990. I was only had like 2.5 months left until graduation, and Dad's like, I won't be able to make it. I kept telling myself I'll make it up, and it just got so far. I was like, I couldn't have made it up. I would have, but I would have been nicer if I would have just went maybe the next year and did some. Adult ed, you know what I mean, or something like that would have been better. I waited all the way up until 2005 when I was incarcerated in LA County Jail I was in a school dorm. It was like a trustee dorm, but it was a school dorm, and so I took the classes and I got my GED there. And I was always good in math. I was good in all my classes. Like I said, AB student. So math was my best subject, my favorite subject. And then I didn't never like history. Yeah, one way or another, I always made sure I got at least a B. Sometimes I didn't, and then I would be very depressed or whatever. But, and then I don't know. Any questions or?
So, how did you essentially start going to prison? Like, what path took you down that?
Okay. Was it? Now you got to remember, I said that I went to work with
your father,
with my dad, right? Now I worked for my dad already. Like I had 4 classes from 10th grade to 12th grade. I only had 4 classes, so I was out at 12:30. So the rest of the day, I would do like courier service for the office. I'd go and pick up contracts or pick up checks, and bring them back, or take checks out or whatever, vice versa. Getting contracts signed and this and that. Going to the supply house, dealing with paperwork for, just basically that type of stuff, or maybe small stuff like, because I had a Mustang at the time. My first vehicle was a Ford Ranger, which was my dad's, and then, but I only had that for like in 10th grade, and then I ended up getting a Mustang after that, which I sold the truck and brand new Mustang right off the showroom floor. But so at that time, I could only take like a couple boxes of nails, or some flashing sealant and stuff like that. Maybe some flashings to a job that somebody needed. But other than that, it was all like paperwork stuff. That was during when I was in school. But then during the summers, I'd go right to work for my dad. But when he found out that I wasn't going to school, he showed up. And my mom had to come find me, and she goes, "Your dad's looking for you. We got to go meet him." And then that's when I just got in the truck, and he's like, "You're going to work full time," and I'm like, "All right, fine," because now I'll have a bigger paycheck. You know what I mean? By the time I was 22, I was supervisor of South Coast Roofing. We had a business before that, which was statewide roofing, but that's when my dad had a partner. His partner asked my dad to be his partner years before that. But during this time of my life, I was already working for him full time. That was statewide roofing. And then when my dad had gotten rid of his partner, because I would have graduated in 1990, I think it was 1990, right around 91, 92, somewhere around there. I think 92. Maybe is when they closed that business. His partner thought he was going to stay on with my dad, but my dad never had plans of keeping him. So it was just, as far as the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, it was my mom and dad, and then I was treasurer and secretary on the corporate title. So 5 years went by. For 5 years, if you're on the corporate title, which I didn't know, I didn't even have to take a test. All I had to do was sign a document, and boom, I had my license, my roofing license, which was good. But I didn't know that I had that when it was active. If I had known, I think I would have even been a little bit more like into, like
into the business.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be into the business, but it wasn't. I needed my dad to say, here, like, this is, what you're doing. Even though he had me, I was acting like as an acting supervisor role, but I wasn't always it wasn't a full time. I mean, I worked full time, but it just like it depended on where he had me at each day, you know what I mean, or whatever. But everybody listened to me. If he had me go run a job, I mean, I did run jobs and do that and keep everything. And the other guys that were older that were with my dad for years, they listened to me. You know what I mean? And it wasn't, and it was cool. But that's just it's because they knew. Okay, it's Duke. It's what would they say? But then. So yeah, at the age of 22, I was supervisor of the roofing company, and then I had a girlfriend. I was renting a house from my grandpa, my dad's dad. My dad's dad had a hardwood floor business, and they both were like a huge success. But the difference from grandpa, like he did his jobs, he made money. He did nice houses, big houses, but he would get like he'd make an extra $5,000 or something to stash away or something, or whatever. My dad, we did big jobs, and he made a lot of money. It's just the scale is just completely different. I did $500,000 jobs on a condo complex that only took a month.
That was for roofing, correct?
The roofing business, yeah. And back in the 80s and 90s, like the late 80s and early 90s, we had I'd say 85% of all Southern California's new roofing tracks. It was pretty intense. And then there was a couple jobs we did for Del Monte up in Fresno. Big warehouses, and those were 3 days, $30,000, $40,000 profit. That was fun because I got to go visit my Nana at the time, and even though I was running the job, but my dad, he just stayed with Nana the whole time. I just was at the job with the guys, with the crew, and handling it. But my dad, it was Christmas 1994, and my dad had said, okay, bud, we're going to have this was 2 days before Christmas that we were having an office party because we had the biggest office in the office complex. There was 3 buildings, a 2-story building, a 1-story building, and then a 1-story building. But we had the one that was in the very center in the back. And it was like an old, I don't know how to say it, not Victorian, but kind of like the front of our office had the